We are absorbing rebounding photons, sound waves in the air, feelings in our nerve ends, and somewhere in our mind there is some frantic, overworked devil that is putting them all together into some sort of coherent picture for us. But sometimes our eyes deceive us. Sometimes we hear things that are not there.
Majick, to me, is just a kind of a method of manipulating symbols to cause change. And that's a bit of a vague statement, and it can take in anything from language to making videos to doing full-on pagan rituals.
I want to control what my body, my brain and my imagination do. I do not want to be limited to this dimension, this sexuality, any sexuality, or even to the concept of thinking of myself as a human being.
Do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. Love is the law, which ostensibly, to my knowledge, has been read as a kind of libertarian view, an approach to magic and to sexual magic and sex magic in particular. And I mean, I think that's the main influence of magic on the underground, I guess.
It's about intent, which is another kind of magical word. Yeah, I mean, people get as fanish a bit of transgression as they do about Star Trek, and both have things in them that are useful, but you've got to extract those from the kind of the shell.
Let's start messing with reality. Let's see what we can do. Let's find out what reality is. Let's see how plastic it is, how easy it is to shove around and shape, you know, and then see what effect that has.
In the mid-'80s, I was very interested in the occult and the Crowleyan magic, which developed into a more general interest in, you know, the spirituality. I've always felt that film has its own alchemy. I mean, just by the nature of the film and the light entering a hole and landing on chemicals.
I guess it's all that we don't know, but I feel in our hearts. It's little bits of the incomprehensible.
And I think the space of not knowing is a very, very good space to be in. So sort of like the emotions become confused. I think that's where transformation can start, a change can start.
Stop your incessant questions. I'm an artist.
Where Evil Dwells, it was about suburban life kind of like crashing in on itself. Ricky Casso was, I don't know, he was a high school kid. He grew up in the suburbs, and he went to some extremes to get some attention. He talked a bunch of his friends into doing these rituals. They killed cats and dogs and shit like that. They tried to get into the satanic world because other kids would be scared of them, fear them, respect them. Ricky eventually killed Gary, who was a friend of his, supposedly because he stole angel dust. So then Ricky said if he ever got caught, he would chase Gary's soul to hell and track him down, which is what we did in Where Evil Dwells. After the other kid gets killed, he finds Gary and the devil, and, you know, then that's where the movie ends. He's happy because he got what he actually wanted.
Magic's very much a way of viewing things. It's a useful, certainly shouldn't be the only way you look at things, but once you start to look at things in that way, you find a useful exercise and you can see how things might work.
We should be looking for something fantastic and more than human, and something that's beyond all our perceptions in terms of what we might be able to be.
I mean, Toby was trying to kind of demystify the whole magic pagan axis and try and make that accessible to everybody, and not to be stuck in the kind of rigid schools of the past. So instead of having a bunch of people hanging around on top of a hill with robes on, we'd still be concerned with being able to do things in tower blocks with half-working television sets, or looking at the magical aspects of going out dancing all night.
We don't actually live in streets and towns. We live in our idea of streets and towns. We live in our perception of streets and towns. It is the perception that's important. And that is the territory of the psychogeographer.
Psychogeography was developed in Paris in the 50s by some impoverished filmmakers. They didn't have cameras and they didn't have film, but they decided that they wouldn't let this prevent them getting on with filmmaking. And this enabled them to think about the environment in which they were living in a way a bit different from just going from A to B or treating space in an entirely functional way. This is a response which I've become involved with, and some of my friends have become involved with, to living in a highly alienated environment.
Ideas enter our above ground culture through the underground. I suppose that is the kind of function that the underground plays, such as it is. That it is where the dreams of our culture can ferment and strange notions can play themselves out unrestricted. And sooner or later those ideas will percolate through into the broad mass awareness of the broad mass of the populace. Our culture, you know, that seems to be perhaps the last revolutionary bastion.
Beach beneath the city streets, but also there's a notion, you know, the gold of the Templars beneath the city streets. Our life shouldn't be about working. It shouldn't be about a humdrum and the mundane, but it should be about people reacting with each other and the environment in a creative way.
The exploration and the adventure in and of itself is really the point. And I think it's more of a fortuitous intersection when somebody's work collides with the authorities, the controlling cultural forces, and creates a scandal. And I think it's to everyone's benefit when that happens. I think that everyone comes out a winner. I think that a dialogue, a debate, a scandal is always good. That's how the royal family stay in power, right?
If you look at the way the monarchy is structured, it's showbiz, and it's not just recently it's been showbiz, it's always been about showbiz. Behind all of that was a system of psychological control, which is what the occult basically is about. It's a way of projecting one's will and one's ideas across to other people, often without them being aware of what's happening.
But you have to realise that, you know, the occult has been widely used by the ruling class, and what is the state opening of Parliament if it isn't an occult ritual?
The real crux of the matter lies is in the other definition of occult, the more general one, of something that pertains to an invisible life or a spiritual life of some sort. And I'd say that it's there where you've got the real nub of power politics.
You can't deny that it's had an influence in society, but you know, on any kind of mystical level, I have no real interest in the occult whatsoever. I mean, obviously I will adopt occult poses because that will influence people. People will think, wow, isn't that mysterious? Maybe I'll go and buy his book and try and work out what this is all about.
Assume nothing is by accident. Assume everything is not for your benefit. Maintain the integrity of your private space. so that you've got a chance to think, because we're being inundated with garbage for a very, very specific reason.
The presentation of the National Lottery can be seen as a quasi-mystical event in its use of magical symbols and ceremonial imagery. A lot of people invest a lot of energy, a lot of kind of psychic energy, a lot of financial energy in this kind of entity, which you can look at as being a demon. And they feed it every week, and it gets bigger and bigger and becomes more and more important in their lives.
I am a master of the occult. Magic is when Wimbledon score a goal.
You can manipulate people's thoughts, you can manipulate people's reality with the right words. Ask Goebbels, ask Peter Mandelson. All of our world is made of words, is made of images. The people who manipulate those words, those images, those are the magicians. And speaking personally, I'd say that you shouldn't trust them any further than you can throw them.